everybody. It is Osiris Munir once again with 15 Minutes to Show. For those of you out there that don't know who I am, I'm Boss, okay? And today we have a Boss show for you. We have Dr. Maxine Bryant. As I said, she's in the field of criminology. Let me just give you a little bit of touch-up. The woman started Bachelor of Science from Walden University. Then she got her master's from Saginaw State University. And then if that wasn't good enough, she went on to get her doctorate from, now let me get this straight, in the doctorate in the philosophy of human services. I have from Walden University, and I have never ever heard of a degree like that. Dr. Bryant, fill us in. Hey, what's up?
Hey, Osiris, it is so good to be with you this afternoon.
Thank you. We're good. So fill us in. How do you get a degree in the philosophy of human services? And just so before you say something, everybody, most of the things that she has done, they focus and are geared towards the world or the field of criminal justice and corrections. So I definitely want to hear this. Speak.
So when you think of the title or the letters PhD, it really does mean philosophy in doctoral or doctorate, right?
Yeah.
My PhD, the focus is human services with a concentration in criminal justice administration and corrections.
Okay. And so a lot of what you do, according to your bio, which we want to get into, you do a lot of diversity and a lot of things to show people how the system has to work with everyone involved. Everyone has to kind of be participating. It can't be a one culture versus the other when it comes to criminal justice. It's a pretty broad field because I imagine that once you broke the law, you've broken the law. So can you expound upon that a little bit about that?
So you're right in that once you've broken the law, you've broken the law. However, that is not distributed equitably among cultures. Okay, so what we know for sure is that African American men in particular, one, they may not necessarily break the law more often, but when they do, they receive harsher penalties, are more likely to become incarcerated and sentenced harsher, as I said earlier. Another group that is a large growing group in the criminal justice system are Black women. Now, another group that's definitely mishandled are the LGBTQ group. And once incarcerated, they're more likely to experience abuse, maltreatment, that type of thing, particularly within the penal system itself. And then there's the idea of class. In the United States, the more money you have, the more likely you are to have better representation, and thus are situated to get a better break, if you will, even if you have done something wrong. And so classism comes in there. People without money find themselves often involved in the criminal justice system, not even because they've done something wrong as much as it is they don't even have the money to bail out or to buy good attorney representation.
Oh my gosh, and I'm imagining. So let's just I wanted to talk to you about this. I think we mentioned it. What happens when people have money and they're celebrities or they're a president of a country? I was listening to Air Talk, I think, on NPR station on the way to the studio here today. And they were saying, I think the guy's name is Jack. I can't think of his last name right now, but he wrote a book and it's about policies and about what happens to people if they break the law and they're public figures or they're entertainers or they're anyone that has a certain amount of class status in the society. What happens to them? Do they get the same treatment? Do they have to go? What happens? I'm dying to know.
So first of all, they do not get the same treatment. The first thing that often happens is that they are able to post bail. They're able to put up money so that they don't have to spend time in jail waiting for their case to come to court. And the bail system is something that's very controversial in our country. Poor people, people without means, often have to spend time in jail while they're waiting for their case. That can take a year or two. I don't know if you're aware of Khalif Browder, who was up in New York, got arrested, teenager, African-American teenager. Mother was on public assistance, got arrested for stealing a backpack, ended up in Rikers for 3 years.
For a backpack? Oh my gosh. For stealing a backpack?
And his bail was only like $200, but if you don't have money, hello. So his mom couldn't post bail. And by the time she did, some kind of ruling had taken place. I don't know. He ended up spending 3 years in Rikers. The case was thrown out because it was baseless to begin with. And because of the treatment, the maltreatment that he received in Rikers, within a year or two of being released, he killed himself.
Oh.
And, so and he was a baby, Osiris, when he went in. He was almost 20.
Just a child.
Right? Just a child, right? So that's what happens when you don't have money. When you do have money, you can afford the best attorney, and you don't have to go to jail in lieu of bail because you have money to post your bail. And then because you have paid attorneys, which are better than your public defenders because the caseload is less, they can pick and choose who they want to take for the most part, and they have time to spend getting to know your case and creating the best defense. Because let me tell you this, now if you notice in the United States, you are not found guilty or innocent.
Proven.
Guilty or not guilty. Oh, because it's not a case of innocence or guilt. It's a case of who presents the facts beyond a reasonable, and I hesitate to use facts. It's a case of who presents your case better than the other person, right? And so a person who can pay a private attorney is going to get more or better representation in the court, who's going to do everything possible, sometimes things that are not even equitable, to win your case.
Wow.
So when you don't have money, oftentimes you don't have access to that level of representation. Here's a true story. I used to live in Indianapolis, and I would provide groups to women in the Marion County Jail. I had a woman on my caseload who hired a hitman to kill her husband.
Shut up.
But she used all her money on the hitman. And so she had to get a public defender to defend her. The man was able to get a private attorney. He got off on a technicality, did no time. He's the one who pulled the trigger and killed her husband. She got much time because representation.
So that brings up several questions in that point. First of all, Martha Stewart went to jail, went to prison. There's another guy that was here. It's close to my heart because it's a friend of mine, but it was a politician from Europe. They both did some crime. The guy that's a politician from Europe, it's in the news. We can talk about it later. I don't want to divulge his personal life on screen. But what happened is that the guy they found him guilty. He did 3 years in Chino, public official from England, went back to England and was allowed to continue to serve. Now, are there laws that say if a person is a public official, they're in a public office, they commit a crime, they should go to jail and not be allowed to serve like anyone else? But that guy did not. He did 3 years. The guy that he shot in the head survived, my friend. He survived. He screwed up for the rest of his life. However, they said if it ever goes to trial or someone takes it upon themselves to advocate for these kind of policies, it will be the first law put in place that a public official can no longer serve once they be convicted of a felony or a crime like that. What is your take on that? Martha Stewart's on TV doing commercials with Snoop Dogg. You know, several people that have gone to prison. I'm not saying, I don't know Martha Stewart personally. She could be a nice person and she did a crime and she paid for it. But I'm saying, where do we draw the borders of where the, I don't understand. I don't understand.
So let's go back to your question about Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart committed what is called a white collar crime. And that's held on a whole nother kind of measuring stick than street crime. White collar crime, for the most part, oftentimes goes unpunished. And when it does get punished, it's punished very lightly. So Martha Stewart didn't really do time in prison.
Didn't go to jail. She went to.
She didn't do jail or prison. She did like a low level place of incarceration. She still had many freedoms that are not allowed or not given to people who are really imprisoned, right? White collar criminals, if you want to say get off easier, they really have an easier time when it comes to serving their time. Most of the time it's a federal crime, and oftentimes it's a situation where they are definitely separated from their loved ones and whatnot, but they have a lot of luxuries, if you could call it that, that are not afforded to people who really go to prison. Now, what you talked about is akin to like an international kind of crime. It should be that people who do crime, regardless of their status, are punished. And many criminologists and criminal justice professionals will say that they are punished to some degree, but it's not equitable, it's not equal punishment. Even if you take a person who has committed maybe a high level misdemeanor in the United States, not even a felony, a low felony, high misdemeanor, oftentimes they will experience a stricter or a harsher punishment than a person with means will do. Money in the United States makes a difference. It makes a difference in whether or not you get caught, have to pay your bail, what kind of representation you have in court, and if you are found guilty, what kind of sentence you will serve.
Well, that's that's a mouthful and great explanation, because those are some of the things that a lot of people want to know about. If they, when people commit crimes, what happened. Charles Manson, all of these big time people that committed these crimes, and they have all these people doing all these things in the name of whatever they believe in. Is just ludicrous to me how it's handled. Now, our show's only 15 minutes, so we don't want to talk too long, and I want to hear a little bit more about what you have to say. Another question that comes up, what yourself and women especially, who I would say we are heart-based in some ways. We're emotional. We are emotional creatures. How are you able to handle the kind of intensity and the kind of spirit and agility you have to have in order to go in there, stand before things that are unequal, turned against people like you and I, turned against other people that may or may have done a crime because they don't have money, whatever the reason. What do you do? How do you manage that?
That's an excellent question. How do you manage it? I think there has to be a degree of separation between self and your own beliefs and realizing what the reality is. So a good example comes to my mind, again, from my time in Indianapolis. A young girl got into a fight and she put out the eye of the person she was fighting. It was obviously an accident, but nevertheless, when she went up for parole, and parole is very subjective, it's not an objective process. The parole board, I was advocating for her. I felt she had done her time. She had engaged in several rehabilitative types of programs and it really turned some things around in her life. And I felt she was ready to come out and rejoin society. It's not like she was going to go around putting out eyes on a regular, right? But I advocated for her before the parole board, and their response was she had not served enough time for an eye. How do you determine that? How do you determine how much time, right? I know Right? Um, so as a Black woman, I come up against situations where I may advocate for someone, or I may have a conversation with an attorney or what have you. And I have to remember, one, that there is inequity, that's the word I'm looking for, in the way justice is served. Now, I don't like that. I'm definitely an advocate for doing things differently, and I can definitely advocate for that. But at the end of the day, there are loopholes, there are ways to get around certain things. And as a woman, I have to face that. And if I don't separate my emotions and my feelings and my passion from that, I will go crazy. Be a victim of trauma.
You would be a victim of trauma. Bless your heart. I am, for all of you out there who don't know, we have women like this, human beings like this, that go out and try to protect those of us who find ourselves sometimes in very crazy circumstances. We made poor decisions. We attracted the wrong people, whatever the case may be. The whole point is that once you have people like Dr. Maxine Bryant go and advocate for you, the whole point is for you to get yourself together and not do these things again. It makes the job harder for people that are advocating and trying to help you get yourself together and meet your goals that are more positive, not so negative. So, Dr. Bryant, in lieu of what I just said and what you said, what would you say to people out there who find themselves in circumstances that there is no hope, they have no money, maybe they're uneducated, maybe they don't even know how to go on the computer and Google some information that might help them? What would you say to them? What would you say to them?
Before I answer that, and I want to get to that real quick, I do want to point out that there are people who've done really heinous crimes and even those who have money, who are doing serious time, like in a maximum security facility or supermax, right? So we do punish those who have been convicted of heinous crimes, like the Charles Mansons, or like the people who blew up the building in Oklahoma.
Well, that would, like Mr. Bill Cosby would that be, because these is people that are in a public figure?
Bigger guy, but his crime would not have been considered, or was not considered, that kind of heinous.
Okay, got you. So a heinous crime, for those of you don't, it's a serious thing. So what does that mean for people that don't?
Serial killers, your mass murderers, people like that will find themselves in a supermax facility. So they do get punished regardless of whatever their financial stance is, if they're convicted, right? And most of those kind of people are, because their crimes are so public. Like the Boston Marathon. The people.
Yeah.
Okay, so things like that. But to get to your question, I certainly believe that people who often find themselves on the other side of the bars, in corrections, in court, in the criminal justice system, are victims of trauma. They have some unaddressed childhood trauma. And so I believe if we could ever begin to address their trauma, we would find our recidivism rates, or the rate at which people are rearrested, to be drastically reduced. There have been studies to support that, but the practice of addressing the trauma is not widespread throughout the United States. We tend to treat people really bad. We want them to hurt while they're incarcerated. So we don't do a lot of things to help. So what I would say to people who find themselves on the other side, if you will, of justice, and are now being called defendants or perpetrators, find a way to begin to address your trauma through counseling, through therapy, through talk therapy, something to begin to uncover what were some things that happened to you. Hurt people, Osiris. And so when a person has not dealt with their unaddressed childhood trauma, they're more likely to act out in antisocial ways that get them where they find themselves behind bars. So I encourage people to seek out help, to begin to uncover the layers of pain that have gone unaddressed in their lives. Because once they began to do that and identify coping skills, they will find that maybe they don't need the drugs that they used to commit the crime that they committed, or they will make better decisions. Because studies have shown that people who have unaddressed childhood trauma don't think like you and I think. They've not learned to process information.
Right.
It's arrested development, if you will. And so if we as a society can begin to get in front of that, we can help ourselves and help them to become law-abiding citizens, if you will.
You are brilliant. I'm honored to know you. And key word you said, one thing you mentioned is you said that what people should do is address childhood traumas. Now, unfortunately and fortunately, the society is growing and encompassing more of a, not so much religious reflection, but a spiritual movement of expression where people are starting to go inside and find deeper things, deeper meanings. What did it mean? And also, if you watch a lot of film, of which I do, every film about somebody bad, they did something, and Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger, Jason, and the Halloween, they all had traumatic childhoods that were unaddressed. And what I find in the society, especially as you mature and your brain starts working in the right way and you start seeing things clearly, what I found is that we address things that have to do with money and economics. We do not go in and help people understand why I feel sad, why I'm unhappy. That's not our job. But maybe if people decided to wait a minute to have families, to go get some counseling, to get some therapy and talk to people before you start putting your junk on another human being that is a helpless creature and they absorb the wrong part of it and get out there and make a mess of things. I think that people like you are very, very valuable. Now, for those of you out there, you know we only do it for 15 minutes and we gotta go, another show. But for those of you out there that wanna get in touch with Dr. Maxine Bryant and her brilliance and her talent and skills, where can they reach you, Dr. Bryant?
All right, that's a good question. So you can always go to either one of my websites, and that is www.drmaxinebryant.com, all one word, or www.maxinebryant.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at MaxieBTweets, Facebook, Maxine Bryant, and I have a telephone number, and I don't know this.
As long as it's a number that the public can have, we're good. As long as it's a number.
912-574-3035. Again, 912.
Say it again.
912-574-3035.
That's 912-574-3035. 305, that's it? Okay, did everybody get that number again? Okay, everybody get it? Okay, one more time, say it again. Dr. Bryant.
912-574-3035.
Okay, everybody out there, it's been a great show today. Thank you all for joining us and our beautiful, lovely, talented, and skilled guest, Dr. Maxine Bryant. You can reach her by her email, her websites, and also her phone number that she has so graciously given online. And so don't forget to go to 15 minutes. Go and view our show, you want to, okay? And we'll see you next time. Say goodbye for now, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Be safe out there voting. Don't get into any trouble. Express yourself. Bye. Bye, Dr. Bryant.
She said, baby, are you into me? Shut up and get on your knees. Go down, down, down low. Down, down, down low. Go slow. Go slow.